Welcome to the Configure Price Quote Podcast. My name is Sohn and I'm the founder of CPQ Consulting. This podcast is 100% focused on Configure Price Quote, also known as CPQ, and will provide you useful insights into this topic. My guest today is Martin Johansen, the founder of Mercura, a CPQ vendor based out of Denmark. Martin started Mercura 5 years ago, straight out of college, and I'm very excited to have him as my guest today. Martin, welcome to the CPQ Podcast.
Thanks a lot for having me, Frank. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm very excited to have you, and let's start by telling me a little bit more about yourself and what you did before you started Mercura.
Well, before starting Mercura, I studied finance and international business at Aarhus University and a bachelor degree in economics. And during my studies, I had a few student jobs, both as a substitute teacher in supply chain management, but I also worked for an e-commerce store. And I became very fascinated by how digital tools can simplify the buying process. And throughout my studies, we had a few case projects together with some industrial manufacturers, and I became very curious to see whether some of those digital experiences that I knew from e-commerce, how that could apply to the commercial logic from those industrial manufacturers. And I think a combination of that curiosity and my interest in business and technology eventually led to the idea of Mercura.
Very interesting, but let me follow up with a question. What gap in the market did you see that you were trying to fill with Mercura?
Well, our first customer was actually a company producing pressure test equipment, and they came to me at a time and said they were looking for a configurator. And I thought to myself, what is a configurator? I had no experience with product configuration or configure price quote. I didn't even know that was a market that existed. But I had a good companion who was a really good computer scientist, and we looked at this issue that they had with some very complex product logic and some salespeople and some agents, distributors around the world that was having a really hard time making quotes for those complex products. So we sat together and we looked at what possible solutions might be there in this market, and we actually found out that this was something that we were both very interested in, and that we could possibly solve in different ways. So this was our way into the CPQ market, that a specific company had this issue, and that we were both very interested in finding good ways to solve it.
Very interesting. Tell me a little bit more about this first customer and this first project and how you started it.
So as it always is with, I think, our first customer, we build, of course, much of the logic in the front end. So we solved all the front end needs that they had with a nice, good-looking configurator, a nice, good-looking quotation engine, and also many of the rules and constraints at that time were being hard-coded to this specific customer in the front end. We also implemented a small backend where the sales reps could log in, see the quotes that they made, and they can then reopen it in the front end. But most of the things at that time were done in the front end, and we looked at ourselves afterwards and said, this is really cool. Could we actually build a nice, easy to set up SaaS product around this? So that was sort of the starting point.
And Martin, outside of your day-to-day work, is there a book, podcast, or a personal interest that has unexpectedly shaped how you approach problem solving in CPQ?
I would say I read a book called Work the System a couple of years ago that really inspired me, and it sort of emphasizes how important it is to building solutions for repeatable processes instead of doing the same thing over and over again. And I think that book has influenced me a little bit at Mercura. And then I'm a salesperson myself. Today I still work with sales. So for me, it's really important to look at how can we make life easier for a sales rep. How can we make a tool that is easy to use, that looks nice, and all having that in mind when building the software, having the sales perspective, the user in mind when building it. I think that has been part of our strategy from the start.
Excellent. We will have a link to this book in the show notes, so anyone who's interested can look this up. But before we talk a little bit more about Mercura, I want to ask you a personal question. And what do you do when you don't work?
I'm very interested in sports. I outside of work, I love to play both football and tennis with friends and family. So I'm a huge sports fan, and I think I love to spend my spare time doing that. That sort of helps me also relax in my mind, get some thoughts away from work. So sport is definitely my biggest hobby.
Oh, and one thing we have to clarify here, you're talking about European soccer, I guess, correct?
Yeah, soccer. Yeah.
Okay, and you're in a club and you play regularly?
Yeah, I'm actually in a club in both sports. So I play. Yeah, I play a competitive match once a week.
Oh, so you're almost a semi-professional?
Nah, no, not at all. Not at all. It's just for fun.
Got it. Then let's switch gears a little bit and let's talk about Mercura. And let's start by telling me a little bit more about the Mercura CPQ solution, so the configuration engine, pricing engine, visualization, and so on. Let's start there.
Yeah. So the goal of the product was to build something that was easy to set up, that does not require a big implementation, that does not require programming. That has sort of been our main thought behind the solution all the time. You should be able to set up some complex product rules, but without having to program anything, with a nice, good-looking user interface. The project is, I would say, a small mid-sized enterprise product. We really try to make a high valuable product at a low cost for the SME segment. That still has a lot of the functionality needed, and that you can see in very big enterprise CPQ tools.
Okay, then let's talk a little bit more about the details here, about the configuration engine. I think you mentioned it's a low-code or even a no-code solution, so let's start there.
Well, the solution is made as a self-service tool. So we typically provide the product manager with a login to the software, and then from that they are able to build all the product rules themselves. So the rules consist of some conditions, basically what needs to be satisfied in order for this specific rule to run, and then it consists of an effect, what should happen when this rule runs. And we have both on the condition side and on the effect side, we have a ton of options, and we can sort of nest all the conditions into each other, so you can make very specific edge case scenarios. You can make rules for very specific scenarios. Besides that, we have a product module where you can upload all your products. You can tag them with some properties and some attributes, and then you can use those attributes to create the rules. So once a rule has been created, then you can link that rule to an attribute, and then all products that have that attribute will already have the rule included. So we do a lot of we call it queries. We do a lot of filtering of the products based on properties, attributes inside this rule builder. We also have some customers that need to do calculations. That could be both on the condition side. They need do some kind of evaluation of a calculation, or on the effect side, they need to set some kind of value equal to a formula. That's also something we can do in this software. That is basically made in an interface that looks a little bit like Excel, and that it has some of the functions that you know from Excel, with mean, max, with absolute, with with rounding, right? And all those kind of things that you can do, those calculations you can typically do in Excel, you could also build those in the configurator.
Excellent. And one thing I have to ask, as you included not just the rule engine, which has the if then else kind of logic, right? So you also had the constraint builder right from the start. I was wondering what was driving you to do that right from the start.
Well, we wanted to build something that was scalable, that did not require big implementations, a lot of consultancy hours, and therefore we thought it was very important to have a nice rule engine, so that either our customers or potential partners to this software could do all the setup, so that we can focus entirely on the product. Right from the scratch, we wanted really to become a product company without having to do a lot of implementation. Therefore, we thought the rule builder was a very integral part of that. Sort of it gave us the time to focus on more functionality rather than focus on implementations.
Excellent. And I think that was a very smart move, not just for investment purposes, but in general. Anyway, let's talk about your pricing engine. What can you tell me about your pricing engine?
I think most of our customers today are using a cost plus based pricing method. So they, from the configurator, calculate what are the costs of this project, and then they put some margin on top of that, and then they're able to. It's a setting in the software, but they're able to decide or define whether the sales price should be a fixed one or whether this is something that can be modified by a sales rep in the end. So our pricing engine is made either that you have a fixed price per item, or that you have a cost plus based pricing method where you're able to calculate your margins and you're able to override the sales price if you want to. Many of our customers are also selling through dealers and distributors, and those dealers, distributors get an access to the configurator, and they are able to see their own prices. So we have what we call discount groups, where those distributors can log in, see their own prices down to the individual line item. So it's very flexible in that sense that every user of the configurator can have their own price for each item and for each country.
Excellent. And how many of your customers have a large partner network that use the solution as well?
I think actually most of our customers today are selling through partners or distributors. That's a very common use case for us, and some of them invite the partners into the configurator so that they can go there and make their own quotations. Others keep the configurator publicly available, then everyone can go in, even customers can go in and configure something. And some do, I would say, a combination as well. That's also possible.
Very interesting, but you're also doing visualization, so please tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah, well, we have some customers also that are interested in 3D visualization in the front end. So we have a front end team that has over the years has gotten quite some experience with 3D modeling in a browser. So we have made a few themes in the front end for different purposes. One for room planning, for example, and one for more, I would say, product visualization purposes. And we use those themes for those customers that want some kind of 3D configuration in the browser.
So you're going for real-time visualization and photorealistic visualization?
Yes. It's live 3D. It's real-time 3D visualization where you can move things around. You can see the things snap to each other. You can see collision points. You can change the view to an isometric view. You can make measurements, do lines, etc. in the 3D visualization as well.
And what about photorealistic visualization?
I would say I would say there are two options. Either you upload pre-rendered good-looking images, then you get really photorealistic 3D out of it, or you go for a more dynamic, real-time, live 3D view, and then the quality is not the same, but the options you have are many more, right? So those are the two alternatives, I would say, and we have customers that choose either of the two.
And you also have connections to CAD solutions like Autodesk, PTC Creo, SolidWorks?
Actually, we don't have that much experience with that. We get some CAD drawings from customers, and then we convert them into a file format that we can use in the front end. Some of our customers are also providing us with step files or with 2D CAD drawings, and then we can attach them to a quote, or we can make a nice documentation output for the sales rep so that they can send this to the end customer. But we don't do a lot of integrations with CAD. We haven't done that, at least for now.
Are you evaluating CPQ solutions? The Novo CPQ briefing subscription gives you vendor-neutral briefs you can read in minutes. They are built for the early step of selection, moving from a long list to a focused shortlist of 5 to 10 vendors. Each brief explains capabilities, where it fits, and what to watch out for. No hype. Many subscribers pair the briefs with AI tools like ChatGPT or Gemini to search faster and compare options. If you want clarity before RFPs and demos start, learn more at novocpq.com/cpq-briefing-subscription. Shortlist faster. But your solution has more add-ons, right? Quote and document analytics, integrations, ESG insights. Tell me a little bit more what's most interesting from your point of view.
I think what we do the most is that we integrate this software with ERP systems. Most of our customers today are using Microsoft Business Central, or they are using Microsoft Dynamics 365 Sales, the CRM part, and we do a lot of integrations with those two systems, where we get all the product data, the prices, the customer discounts, the part lists if they have them as well, and then once a configuration has been done in our software, then we post the bill of material on the right customer with the right pricing, right? So once the quote has been approved, well, then they can run their entire production from the ERP system. That's what we do the most, I think. And we have also worked on add-ons, extensions, right? Building this software into, for example, Dynamics 365 Business Central, so that you can actually access the configurator from there. ESG is of course top of mind in many places right now, and we also have some customers that want to calculate CO2 emissions on quotes and stuff like that, and that's also possible in our software to add emission factors on different line items, and then add them all up on the quote at the end. That's also something we can do.
Great, and that brings me to my next question. I want to understand your target audience a little bit better and let's start talking about the industries that you're focusing on.
I think our biggest industry by far is manufacturing. That's where we have most of our customers. Companies that are selling some kind of complex equipment. Typically, those are a bit niche products. And for that, we have a really good standard solution where the implementation can be done or more or less almost always by themselves, right? And that where they only have to pay a license for the CPQ software, and then they're good to go. I think that's our biggest industry. But we also have a few sort of industry-specific solutions. We have a couple of customers within the playground industry where it's more planner-related, where they need to make some some nice 3D plans for playground, and they need to put things together, and they need to calculate the installation costs, and at the end they need to make a nice quote. We have customers within healthcare equipment as well. There we also have some, I would say, an industry specific solution. But sort of overall, I would say we typically work with manufacturing companies.
And what customer size do you typically work with?
Everywhere between, I would say, 5 to 200 users. That everywhere, and that's in all in that spectrum of company size are relevant for us. Even the small companies are interested in this and can buy a few users, and then they are off as well.
And I guess most of your customers are currently in Europe. Is that correct?
Yes, they are. We are currently onboarding sales partners in different places in Europe, and that's where we have our main focus. But lately, we have also gotten some interest outside of Europe, primarily in the US and also in South America. So that has been very interesting, and also a little bit hard with the time difference. But but yeah, we see interest. We have gotten some interest for the product different places around the world, but definitely Europe as our target market.
Got it. Now I'm interested to learn a little bit more about your solution architecture. Like, is it a headless solution? Is it API first? Tell me a little bit more about that, please.
Well, our software is not headless in that sense. That's something we would like to do at a later stage, but right now it's not a headless software. We have built a backend for this, and then we have focused on making some I would say a modular and modern API layer on top of this, so that the software is easy to integrate with. But it's not completely headless at this stage.
Got it. So tell me a little bit more about the integrations, right? So the out-of-the-box integrations, like, for example, to a CRM, an ERP, CAD system, PLM system, and on and on. Tell me a little bit more about your out-of-the-box integration capabilities.
Well, we have made a standard integration where we can get data from more or less every system that has an API, where we can define the API endpoints that we want to retrieve the data from, and that where we can set up the token, the authentication. We typically get data from ERP, and we typically get data from PIM, product information management. That's typically, both things are typically product data. On the post side, I think it's more customized. It's more dependent on what the customer wants and how those integrations should work. We have experience with integrating with ERP. Again, as I said, we post sales quotes. Primarily, we have focused on Microsoft Business Central, on F&O. We have a system in Denmark called Uniconta. We have one called Visma Business. Those have been our focus for now for the ERP side. We have also been focusing on CRM and have made integrations, for example, with HubSpot, so we can post data to that and create a deal inside HubSpot. Same for the sales, as I said, the 365 customer experience, or as it's called now, sales. Previously called sales. And that's typically where we hand over some data. It could also been an e-commerce system where we hand over some things to the cart, for example. We have also done that a few times, where they include the configurator on the web shop, and once a configuration has been done, then it ends in the cart on the web shop on the e-commerce system, and then they can fulfill the order, right? They can do all the payments.
Got it. One follow-up question here is about the ERP systems like SAP and Oracle. Did you do anything over there? How is that working?
Actually, we are about to do one with SAP now. It will be the small SAP, the business one for now, though. But what we have seen until now is that the standard integration for the get would work with SAP Business One, and then we would have to do a post as well to the sales quotes. But SAP is definitely high up on our roadmap. It's a really big player in the ERP landscape, and we would love to build our software even closer to SAP.
Now let's talk a little bit about AI. How is Mercura incorporating AI into its CPQ offering, and what future AI-driven capabilities can customers expect from you?
And we have only focused on the last part here, using AI to set up the configurator, set up the rules and constraints, and have made our own agents using the OpenAI platform, using some of their best models for this. And we have made an agent that can set up both all the configuration steps as well as setting up the rules. So as it is today, you can write the rules in plain text. If this is selected, then hide that, or what do I know? And then the agent can convert this into a rule in our software. That's how it works. And we have been trying, and we have done this in order to, again, minimize implementation time for our customers, for our partners, making it an easy to set up tool.
And they use it heavily today?
I would say more and more, right? It's there is some adaptation time as well, and as it always is with AI. But I think it's becoming more popular. Yeah.
Got it. So then let's talk about the top business requirements that you hear from your customers. What would you say? What are the top 3 business requirements you hear and that convince customers that your solution is the right solution for them?
Well, they have some product rules and constraints that they are having a hard time. So the first part is that they need a tool where the product manager can set up those rules easily. Most of our customers today are coming from an Excel sheet, for example. So where they have done a lot of if formulas or lookups or what do I know. So that's the first requirement, that they have a nice place to write down and set up the rules. I would say the second thing is the front end. They want to have a nicely looking front end that does not require programming again. So we have made a few themes in the front end that they can use, and they can set up themselves, where they can choose the colors and the fonts, and they can choose a lot of features, whatever they want here. That's also a thing. And then thirdly, I think that's the documentation output. They are looking for something where they can create good-looking sales quotes, and we have a quote builder for that as well, where they can choose front page, choose some branding pages, choose how the bill of materials should look, the terms and conditions, whether there should be documentation in the back of it or stuff like that. So that, I would say those 3 things are what I hear the most in the market that the customers need.
Then let's look at the typical project for Mercura CPQ. How long does it take? What's involved? Give me a short overview of that, please.
And that question is a bit hard sometimes to answer, because some of our customers, like I said, they do most of the implementation themselves. So sometimes we don't really hear from them. They just set it up, and then they're up and running. If they ask us for help, I think the case that we have been involved in typically take a few months, 1 or 2, 3 months from start to scratch, finding out. And it really depends on the, I would say, the maturity of the customer. How far are they in this configuration, in the configuration thoughts? Do they already know the rules, or do they have to first invent the product rules? Do they know which products they would like to have in a configurator? Do they have good product master data? All those things, if they are in place, we can do the implementations, or they can do the implementations very quickly. But sometimes there is a pre-process here where they have to figure out, first of all, how the flow is supposed to look, and how the rules are made, because that's not everyone of our customers that knew that from the start.
That brings up a very interesting follow-up question, and that is, do most of your customers do the implementations themselves, or you do it, so you don't need any system implementers? Is that correct?
Yeah, that's almost correct, because a few months ago, earlier this year, we started looking for partners around Europe, and today we have 5 partners in Denmark that are doing some implementation as well, and they are also doing some customization. So in case the customer comes and wants something specific in the front end, then we have a software developer kit that the partner uses and does all the customization. But we are actively looking for both sales partners and system integrators around Europe, because there is definitely also a need for that for some customers that would like to get an expert on the sideline to help them, and maybe some of our customers do not have the capacity also to do some of the implementation, so they would rather have a partner to do it.
Got it. All very interesting. I would love to talk more, but we're coming to the end of this episode, and we will have the contact information for anyone who has questions for Martin in the show notes. Martin, thank you very much for making time for the CPQ podcast today.
Thanks a lot, Frank, for having me.
I'd like to thank everyone for listening and hope you learned something interesting today. If you like the podcast, please go ahead and rate it on iTunes or share it with your friends and colleagues. In the meantime, you can find us online at www.novocpq.com. So long, everyone.